Hello YouTube. This morning we are working on a 2001 Jeep Wrangler, and which has a 4.0 engine in it. One of the few challenges this engine has is it leaks oil, as you may know. The two spots they tend to leak oil is the valve cover and then also the oil pan gasket. When we're repairing these, we like to, if it's leaking at the valve cover, you want to do that first. You always want to fix, or you want to address the leaks from the highest and front part of the engine and then do the lower parts of the engine later, because it may just be that the oil is leaking down to the oil pan. So we're going to do the top gasket first. We have cleaned the engine some already. These oil pans, what you want to do is you want to look at the leak they tend to leak at the back first. And sometimes if they leak in the back, a lot of people think, oh, my rear main seal's gone. Well, you want to check the back of the valve cover first, because they tend to leak. They start at the back and then those leaks move forward. So if you're leaking at the front, you're probably leaking all the way through the front and back. So we're going to get started on that. One of the other things I'm going to point out right now is you may notice that these grommets here, these start out as rubber. But what happens is they get super hard over time. One of the tricks that works really good is when you're pulling these out, best thing to do is to heat up the engine, get the engine nice and hot, let it run for 10 or 15 minutes, or take it out for a drive. Then you'll be able to pry this air breather tube and the PVC out. But if you try to do it while it's cold, it doesn't work very well at all, and you usually end up breaking either the air breather or the PVC. And we'll make sure to get your part numbers on those grommets and from multiple sources so you know where to get them. So what we're doing now is just starting to take off the valve cover. And are these 1/2 inch? JJ?
11.
Oh, yeah, 11 millimeters, which I think translates into, what is that, 3/8 or something like that. I'll get you an update on that. 7/16, but it's 11 millimeters what we're using to take those off. This is where it gets hard, where you've got to go back and do the back bolts. The ones in the back tend to be a lot more difficult. You've got to lean much further over the car. You can either get them from the front, or if you want to reach over the side. Standing on the bumper helps, or getting a big box or something to stand on is helpful. When we're doing these grommets here, we typically do the grommets after. You don't want to work on a hot engine. It just, you don't want to get burnt. So what we do is we just do those, you clean it first, and then we'll put those on at the very last part of it. So you don't have to warm it up, and so you're not working on a hot engine the whole time. If you can do all this stuff while it's cold, the job will be much more enjoyable. Okay, so what he's got back there is, you can see he's got a 3-inch extension. JJ's using a 3-inch extension.
Wobbly extension.
With a wobbly. It's a wobbly rather than the universal, which makes it a little easier to work back into those few bolts, but that are the 2 bolts that are back there.
It's vertical, but look, this one will go through this one.
Let me show them what that wobbly looks like, because they're kind of rare. So the wobblies, you can see they're not straight. They're angled a little bit. They're curved here, and what that does is, let me see that socket now. It lets the socket bend like that. So it's not, you can see it's not a universal, but it gives you a little bit of movement to make it easy.
Need an 18 for this front bolt to get the AC lines off.
Okay.
And that back one for the ground. Otherwise the valve cover doesn't want to come off.
Okay, so Carrie, come around here. Let's show this bolt here. So there's a big bolt here. It gets hung up here, and it gets hung up. You can see that there's a clamp here. This clamp holds the valve cover on, so it doesn't like to come up at all right there because of this clamp. So typically, if you move the clamp out of the way, or if you can jiggle it, sometimes you can get lucky. But either moving that clamp can help or make it a little bit easy for you. So there's an 18 back there. And does that have, that has the ground wire on it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that holds the ground wire. So whatever you do, you got to make sure to get that ground wire back on there. When you don't have ground wires, there should be a couple more ground wires on this engine, especially from the battery. But when you don't have ground wires,
You make no power.
yeah, the boogeyman comes out, really, is what happens. And you'll have all sorts of unexplained electrical issues that you cannot figure out. So you want to make sure, and you can see JJ got, by getting that back bolt off, he's able to get the valve cover free without taking this off. So there's a couple different ways to do that. You can bring this up and move this out of the way. You'll leak a little bit of coolant if you do that, but if you can get that back bolt off where the ground wire is, you can do that. You can wiggle it loose and jiggle it out of there with leaving the clamp in place. Sometimes it helps to have an extra hand or two.
Thank you.
And as you see, when you're looking at this, this is what we need to repair. Look how deteriorated that is. It's just total turn to just mush. And this is the valve cover gasket right here. It's just totally just not worth anything anymore. You can see where it's totally leaked through here, and it's leaking on the outside, not only from the back and around, but all the way up front. So it's made its way all the way up. So good time to replace. Next thing we're going to do is take the valve cover gasket off, and go ahead and do that, JJ. You can see it does come right off. Normally doesn't stick in place. It just comes right out. It's just totally oil saturated. And so the big trick on this, if you want to have a successful job and not have it come back on this, or not have to do this job again, it's absolutely critical that you get this surface clean all the way around. It gets difficult in the back. And there's a couple different ways you can do that. We'll show you how to do that. But you've got to get this surface clean, and you've got to get the valve cover surface clean. You get those two surfaces really clean, you get a good valve. Get the valve cover clean, get the surface cleaned, torque it down right, you'll be in awesome shape. Okay, so the next step, we've got to get this surface perfectly clean. Got to get the valve cover surface clean. This is the harder of those surfaces because it's not mobile. You know, the valve cover you can take out, put it on a shop bench, or put it in your lap and clean it. This surface is a lot harder, especially around the back. So there's a couple different ways to clean this that we'll show you. First thing you want to do is you've got to use a cleaner around this edge. You know, whatever you have around. You have a carburetor choke cleaner, you can use that. The brake cleaners are going to cut through quicker. One of the things we do recommend when we're doing this is an oil change after, especially if you're spraying, you know, cleaner into this area. The brake cleaners and stuff like that are going to evaporate. But it's always good to do an oil change once you've opened this up and you got it clean. So quick way to do that is get a razor blade like this, and what you want to do is you want to scrape this like this, and what you want to do is you've got to get rid of this. You'll see there's a black edge here, and you want to get this surface perfectly flat again, and you've just got to do that by scraping and spraying. And you can work through, and you can see that this is the part that takes a long time. It's just doing this part right, not just slapping a gasket back on and doing that. Another tool you can use, a nice sharp chisel. Make sure when you're doing this that the dirt that's going stays on the outside of the engine, and that it doesn't go into the engine. So get the outside edges. What you want to do is you want to push this, make sure you're pushing all the dirt to the outside and that it doesn't go inside. We've got a little chunk here we need to get out. There we go. Got a little bit more in there. But the idea is make sure you keep this, we want to keep this clean, you know, push it out as it builds up, clean it off, and then as you get little things, if something falls in to the inside, make sure you get that cleaned out and nice and clean. Like I said, you want to change the oil and put a new filter on when you do this. The best time to do this is obviously, if you can, right before an oil change, so you don't just do your oil change and then, you know, a week later you decide to do this, and well, now you need to, you know, have another oil change. So there you go. We'll just keep working at it. This is the part that takes the longest. It's just getting all the surfaces nice and clean. Okay, so what thought we'd do while we're working on the other valve cover gasket is, you know, in the event you don't have that year, like the 2000-2001 Jeep Wrangler, this is a 1991 Jeep Wrangler Sahara. This has a 4.0 in it. The earlier version, you can tell valve cover gasket's different. This one is a little bit easier to remove. You can see the air box, things have been, the air has been rerouted. You can see there's not as much stuff crossing the engine. Also pulling this one off is a little easier. This one, same idea. You can see we've gone and we've replaced the valve cover gasket in this already, but you just got to go around the outside and remove that as well. So this is a 91. This is a 1991 Jeep Wrangler. I'll show you a few more. Okay, I'll show you another one here. This is one that we're doing some vacuum lines on. Valve cover gasket was already done when we came in, but this is a 1990 Jeep Wrangler. And this has the 4.2 liter engine in it. You can see it's carbureted here, so a little different than the newer fuel injected ones. But same process. Just got to go around, get these bolts off all the way around. You've got a little better access to the valve cover on this, where it's a little bit easier to do than the newer ones with the 4.0s, especially on the newer ones, you get hung up right here on this, on the clamp, on the upper radiator hose clamp. This one's got a thinner clamp, so you're not going to get hung up as much, but like I mentioned on the 4.0s, if you take that ground wire off and you get that, it's able to slide out a little easier without moving that clamp. I'll show you one more on a Cherokee. Okay, so guys, I'm going to show you another 4.0 here. This is in a 1996 Jeep Cherokee. So another 4.0 engine. It's similar setup and design as the Wrangler. You can see on this one, if you get close here, see the valve cover is not leaking up front here, and where the valve cover gasket is, you can see we've got a problem with the grommet and with the breather valve. You guys know, one thing I'll show you real quick tip. So this black one here is a breather valve. They call it a breather valve. In the back, this one, the gray one, is called a PVC valve. You can see, so both the grommet here, this is leaking down the side here, and so both the breather, grommet, and the valve cover, breather grommet and the PVC grommet are both leaking black. You can see gray. Let me show you around side here. We can take a look in the back. Like I mentioned, the 4.0s tend to start to leak in the back, and then they move up to the front. What you want to do is you want to get way down in here, and you want to see if there's oil there. Looks like this one is still, you know, it's okay. It's not bad. It's okay. It's holding. It's just that these grommets aren't. And like I mentioned, I'll get you these numbers, all these part numbers, so that you can do a great job. Okay, guys. So the next step of what you need to do is we need to clean the valve cover, and what we just need. The first thing you need to do is we need to pop out all these small grommets. And you just use a screwdriver. You see we got a nice little pry thing there, and you just go through and you pull all those out.
Don't lose these.
These are very important. You'll reuse those. We're just replacing the piece of rubber. This piece of rubber right here, it's got all hard and nasty, so this gets replaced here, and then it's going to go back on that. Okay, so after you have that done, just one more right here. You can take them out with your fingers too if you want. A little harder. Flip this over. Okay, so the next thing you do, you can go through the same process and put a cleaner on here, a degreaser, and get these scraped off. Get it nice and clean. We have a pressure washer here at Jeepfix, so we are going to cheat. We are going to clean this thing with the pressure washer. Just degrease it, put a good nice degreaser soap on there, and then just pressure wash it. That's what we do here. It just goes faster. So if you have a pressure washer, use that. If not, go ahead and spray it down with the same stuff you're using before, brake cleaner, carb cleaner, what you have around. Get this surface really, really clean, and that will help you have a great, successful valve cover gasket job.
When you use the pressure washer, you might want to make sure it's dry before you try to put it back on.
Yeah, with the pressure washer, you can see it's going to go everywhere. The water is going to go in here, it's going to go there. You do have to let it dry a little bit longer. Water ends up in some of these channels between these pieces of metal, so you got to get the water out of it. But I think in the end, it's just faster. And you get a nice clean valve cover gasket. You can see here that we did put initial wash on this, and you see even with washing, there's stuff here that's still here. You can see down the cracks, there's still oil buildup that's there. So putting a pressure washer on there will really help it make it look nice and have a good job. Let me show you a trick real quick in the back, because this is definitely the hardest area to scrape. You know, if you're using a razor blade like this, getting back in here and scraping this area, keeping the dirt out, it's very difficult to get your hands back in here. I want to note real quick that this block is cast iron. It's not aluminum, so it's not going to scrape up as easy. You still want to be careful, but back here, if you can use a chisel and keep your angle good, still want to be gentle with it, but you can see it allows you to get much further back in the back area and to get these surfaces clean. So chisel or anything that you can attach a razor blade that's longer will definitely help you get back there in the back to get it clean. Especially like I mentioned before, this is the area that tends to leak first. It's in the back. So getting everything clean is necessary. Okay, what we're going to show real quick on this is putting the small rubber grommets in that fit into the valve cover. You just push them in like that, and then you just put the metal piece over top like that, and it's as simple as that. And you do the same thing all the way up and down, then you're good. You can see we got it pressure washed and we got it clean, so the valve cover looks nice and clean. We're going to stick it in now. We'll show you that. We got the surfaces clean. We're going to go ahead and put the valve cover gasket on. This one happens to be a Fel Pro gasket. We are going to list all the part numbers. If you want to, if you want to use a dealer part number, that's fine. If you want to use your Fel Pro, we'll list, we'll list the part numbers. We'll try to get them and do, your AutoZones, O'Reilly's, Napa's, the part stores. So it's easy for you to find this. But the valve cover gasket's on. That's the next step.
Some of them with the aluminum valve cover have a specific side for the valve cover gasket to go on, and it should have an indicator that says it's valve cover side. Don't want to get that mixed up.
Okay, good. So on this 4.0, not the case, but the others, it's a 4.2 you said?
No, on the aluminum 4.0s.
Oh, on aluminum 4.0s. We showed you one of those earlier on the other Jeep. They've got an aluminum valve cover gasket. Watch for that. Wiggle, just gotta wiggle, be patient. Don't force it, be nice. One of the other things I want to mention to you guys in this is when you're working on, cars, having enough light is key. The more light you can get in there, the better you can see, and the less mistakes you've made. I've made a few mistakes, mistakes that have cost me a lot of time, just because I couldn't see good enough, and I couldn't see good enough because I didn't have enough light. So make sure you've got good lighting for yourself, so you save yourself time. The other thing I want to talk about real quick is, while we're putting this on, is one of the things that drives me a little crazy about some of these YouTube videos I see is it's something that takes them, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours. You can see it just popped on. You just wiggle, 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 you'll get it on.
Sometimes you have to push a little harder than you expect.
Yeah, so they usually hang up right down here. It gets hung up right here on this clamp for the upper radiator hose. So just watch that and jiggle it. Like I mentioned, one of the things I absolutely hate is you're watching this video and you're like, oh, that would be like so simple, because it's heavily edited. And this job that looks like, it's going to take 20 minutes ends up taking 2 hours. So just quick heads up on this. When you're doing this, expect that this is going to take you, the first time you do it, might take you the afternoon to do it. And so, I'm talking maybe 2 to 3 hours on the first go. So, when you're watching this video, don't look at it, oh, that video was 15-20 minutes long. It's going to be 15-20 minutes. No, this is... we didn't show you the pressure washing. There's a few things, and we've done this. JJ's done this probably 3 times this week. Is that right, JJ?
Yeah.
Something like that. He's done this job 3 times this week. It's Saturday today. He's done the job 3 times this week already. So he may have made it look a little easier than it actually is, because he does it. We do this all. Jeepfix, we do this all the time. So, be patient with yourself. And I just want to give the heads out there as like, hey, expect 3 hours on this on your first go around. If you want some bragging rights, and you haven't, I want to hear from the guys that haven't done this before. If this is your first time doing a valve cover gasket, put a comment in there and say, Hey, first time, and it took me this long. And now that'll give the guys out there that are watching this, an idea on how long it took them for the first time. I don't know how long it takes, frankly, for the first time. It's been a long time since we've done it the first time. So put a comment in there. I'd love to hear what your time was on the first go around. Bolts are going in now. You want to work across on these. Another tip I'm going to give you, we're going to show you, I know a lot of the YouTubes, a lot of the guys will show people using hand wrenches. We are a shop here, and I'd never, even before I had a shop here, I've never been a fan of just hand wrenches. And the reason why is it takes a lot of time to use hand wrenches. If you're a guy that likes to work on his car, and plan on working on your car again, we're going to show you a few things that we use to make this job go faster. So that's going to help you, even though it may be your first time. You may be able to cut 45 minutes out of this job because you've got a hand tool that will help you go faster. We'll show you those. I'm a huge fan of speeding things up, and hey, you know what, if you're doing this job yourself, you're not paying the mechanic bill, you deserve a good tool for yourself that's going to help you now and in the future on this job. I'm going to go grab one of my favorites for this, and you've seen JJ's, the tool JJ used on this earlier. I'm going to go grab mine and we'll show you in a second. I'll show you one more here. This is one more tool you can use. We didn't use this, but I have this here in the shop. This is not much better, obviously, than just holding onto the little razor blade by your fingers, but not as good as a chisel or that longer extension we showed with the razor blade. So there's this. You can get this. I got this at a big box store. You can use this. The other thing I'll show you, so just full disclosure here, we're way early in our YouTube videos. This is probably like number 4, so we don't have any sponsors or anything like that. So I don't know if I'm just going to show you a few tools that we use here that are non-sponsored. This is JJ's. This is one that he uses all the time. It's small, handheld, uses a 3/8, and you saw him take the valve cover gasket off with that. That's his tool. He likes it. I'll give you a part number there if you need an excuse to go buy a tool.
Who doesn't?
You can see that. You always need an excuse to go buy a tool. So there's that one there. Volt VMAX 12, small handhold. This is one that I found through another internet video that I like. This one, you can see it runs much slower. It's electric, which I like. Doesn't use it doesn't gobble up. We've got a three-phase air compressor here, which would gobble a lot of power if you're using this. But this is something that's really small, simple, doesn't use much power at all. It's Milwaukee. Let me see if I can give you something there. I think I bought this. I bought this off of Amazon, and I had a couple batteries here already, so I didn't need to buy batteries with it. But need an excuse? I really like this one. It allows you to get in real small spaces. It's not nearly as fast as this one here. You can see how much faster that spins. This has a lot more torque. So this is great. You need a little bit more torque, bigger. You need to get into a smaller area. You have this. Either for this job, either one of them works. Okay, guys. So what we're showing you next is the torque and torque sequence. So ideally, when you're working with a valve cover gasket head, it's very similar. You start in the center and work your way out. So you just start here and then just work your way this way, and that's how you get that right. Is just from the center out. And I said, like I mentioned, that's 85 inch pounds, or 10 Newton meters if you're a metric guy. And as you do this kind of over and over again, if you happen to, you'll get it by feel. You'll know kind of where you need to be. But you know, go ahead and stick the bolts in, get them all hand tightened. That part doesn't matter. But get all the bolts in, get them hand tightened. You know, get them, you know, somewhat a little tighter, and then you can get them torqued down. When you are taking this apart, go ahead and pull your camera out and get a picture of these bolts here. You'll notice that these bolts, some of them stick up really high and then some of them are flat. The reason for that is for things like this. You can see this goes in and it attaches right in the top like that. And so that's what those are for. If you get a picture right at the beginning, you'll know, okay, this is where this one goes, this one where this goes, and you won't put it all back together, then realize that you need, well, this wasn't a short flat one, it was a tall one. So that will give you a little help earlier on, so you don't have to take all the bolts off. You know, take a few of them, and there's not a lot of them, there's just a few that if you get to the very end you might go, oh man, okay, I need to take this out and switch it over here. That will save you just a little bit of time. So that's the gas cable that's going on there.
Throttle cable?
Throttle cable. And this one goes down, I think, to the transmission, right?
Yeah, that's...
This is the kick down. So the this cable knows, this tells the transmission where the throttle is, and as it opens up, it knows to tell the transmission, okay, shift down, and if we're in third gear, shift down to second or shift down to first, because there's a lot of gas that's being applied right now. That's what that one does. Vehicles that have cruise control, you'll see another one there as well that come in a little bit of the later Jeeps. You'll see one more cable for cruise control. This is the air cleaner that's going on, and just kind of finishing putting things back together. After you're done with this, if you want to have things look super nice, either for yourself or your client, is you can spray the engine with a nice degreaser. You can see look how nice that valve cover looks, but you know, the rest of the engine is okay. It's not great. You can go and clean the rest of the engine. If you're doing this for a client, you know, or a customer, they just absolutely love this, that they open it up and, you know, the whole engine compartment's clean and beautiful. Okay, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment to Jeepfix. Thanks so much for watching, guys. We hope we helped you out. Take a job with this valve cover gasket where you can run into a few pitfalls and make it super easy for you. Thank you for watching.